On an autumn afternoon, a pleasant breeze blew through the residential neighborhood of Dayton, Ohio. Jessica Reed sat in her living room, focused intently on her laptop. As a freelance graphic designer, she handled a wide range of work from small local businesses to major clients. When came around, she interrupted her work as usual and headed toward the front door. It was time for her daughter Emily to come home from school. "I'm home, Mom." 10-year-old Emily opened the front door with her bright voice. The fifth grader had curly brown hair inherited from her mother and an endearing smile that left a lasting impression. Her small body radiated the satisfaction of having finished another day at school. "Welcome home, Emily. How was your day?" Jessica asked while hugging her daughter. Emily laughed happily in her mother's arms as she began telling her about the day's events. She'd gotten a perfect score on her math test, read books in the library with her friend Sarah during lunch break, and was the last one standing in dodgeball during gym class. As Jessica listened to her daughter's stories, she felt a small sense of pride growing in her heart. 2 years ago, Jessica had divorced her husband, Michael. Their married life had never been a happy one. Michael was selfish, a man who prioritized his hobbies and friends over his family. Even when Jessica was pregnant, he would stay out late drinking with friends and left all household finances entirely to her. Even after Emily was born, the situation didn't change, and life with a husband who wasn't cooperative with childcare was a daily series of stresses. When Jessica decided on divorce, she was filled with anxiety. She had financial worries, but more than anything, she was concerned about making her daughter feel lonely. However, looking back now, that decision had been the right one. Michael's visits were only once a month, and child support was paid without delay. For all other times, peaceful days continued with just mother and daughter. "Mom, let's go see a movie again this weekend," Emily suggested cheerfully while starting her homework. Weekend movie viewing had become precious time for the two of them. The time spent enjoying comedies and fantasy films while sharing popcorn was blissful for Jessica. "Of course. What would you like to see this time?" "Sarah told me there's a new animated movie playing. It's about a dog and cat becoming friends." Jessica smiled as she watched her daughter's pure joy. Emily had grown into a kind child who cared about her mother. Sometimes she would help with housework, and when her mother was tired, she would massage her shoulders. She approached her studies seriously, and her school teachers often praised her as a wonderful child. While preparing dinner, Jessica reflected on her daughter's growth. At the beginning of the divorce, she had worried, will she be okay without a father? But Emily was growing up strong and kind. Her friendships were good, and she was actively engaged in her studies. Most of all, the fact that she openly expressed trust and love for her mother was Jessica's greatest joy. "Mom, what's for dinner tonight?" "Tonight, it's your favorite chicken curry." "Yay." Emily's delighted voice echoed throughout the house. These casual, everyday conversations were the most precious time for Jessica, sitting around the dinner table together, talking about the day's events. Such ordinary but warm moments deepened their bond. After dinner, Emily worked on her homework while Jessica prepared for the next day's work. Before going to bed at night, it had become their habit to get into bed together, read books, or talk about future dreams. "Mom, let's keep working hard together, just the two of us." One night, Emily said these words while holding her mother's hand, and they were deeply etched in Jessica's heart. Seeing her small daughter understand the family situation in her own way and try to support her mother made her chest feel warm. "That's right, Emily. We're the best team." That night, Jessica gazed at her daughter's sleeping face, enveloped in deep relief. In mid-October, when Dayton's streets were wrapped in beautiful autumn foliage, Jessica began to notice small changes in Emily. At first, they were changes that didn't concern her much. "I'm home, Mom." Emily came home from school as usual, put down her bag at the entrance, and immediately ran upstairs. Can you imagine making $10,000 a month just from YouTube, all from home? That's exactly what I did without It Stories. No face, no voice. Check a link in the description if you're curious. She would always come to her mother and talk about the day's events as a habit. "Emily, where are you going?" "I'm going to take a bath." Emily turned around halfway up the stairs with her usual smile. However, that smile seemed to lack the naturalness it had before. "A bath already. It's only 0.0. I ran during gym class, so I got sweaty." It feels gross, so I want to take a bath. Jessica smiled as she answered, I see, but make sure you do your homework properly later. I know. Emily went up the stairs lightly, and the sound of the bathroom door closing could be heard. Then the sound of the shower began to echo. While Jessica found it a bit strange, she thought it was good that her daughter was becoming hygiene conscious. However, this habit of going straight to the bath continued the next day and the day after that. Emily would come home from school, barely greet her, go upstairs, and always take a bath. What had initially been about 10 minutes of bath time gradually became longer. Emily, you've been in the bath a long time. You've been in there for 30 minutes already. Just a little longer. Emily's voice could be heard from inside the bathroom. That voice seemed somehow smaller and more fragile than before. After a week had passed, Jessica decided to ask her daughter directly. At the dinner table, she spoke in as natural a tone as possible. Emily, you've been taking a bath every day lately. Is there any special reason? Emily stopped her hand holding chopsticks and looked up at her mother. At that moment, Jessica thought she saw a flash of confusion in her daughter's eyes. However, her usual smile quickly returned. I'm just hygiene conscious. Mom, the teacher also says staying clean is important. I see. Emily is a good girl. While praising her daughter, Jessica felt a small sense of unease deep in her heart. Emily's answer was logical, but it had a somewhat rehearsed ring to it. A few days later, Jessica began to notice other changes in her daughter. Previously, she would tell detailed stories about school events, but recently, even when asked questions, she would only give simple answers. What kinds of things happened at school today? It was normal. Nothing special happened. Did you play with Sarah? Yes, I played. What did you play? Various things. Emily's answers gradually became more vague. Previously, she would tell detailed stories about little conversations with friends and interesting events during class, but now she only gave minimal answers to her mother's questions. However, her grades remained good. She properly completed her homework, and her test scores were the same as before. Her friendships also seemed fine on the surface. On weekends, Sarah would sometimes come over to play, and Emily would act as bright as before during those times. Emily has become more mature lately. When Sarah's mother came to pick her up, she once said something like that. Jessica thought the same. Her daughter certainly seemed calmer than before. But wasn't that calmness the result of losing the innocence typical of a 10-year-old child? In November, her bath time became even longer. Sometimes she would be in there for nearly an hour. Jessica became worried and knocked on the bathroom door. Emily, are you okay? I'm okay, Mom. I'll be out soon. However, that soon would often continue for another 15 minutes. The shower sound would stop, then start again. It sounded like she was repeatedly washing something off. One night, Jessica peeked into her daughter's room. Emily was doing homework at her desk, but her profile didn't have the carefree smile it once had. Although she was concentrating, she seemed somehow absent-minded. Emily, if something is troubling you, please talk to Mom. At her mother's sudden voice, Emily turned around with a surprised look. Her expression at that moment was clearly upset. Why? There's nothing wrong. I see. But if something happens, don't hesitate to talk to me. Mom is always on Emily's side. I understand, Mom. Thank you. Emily smiled, but that smile seemed artificial. As Jessica gently stroked her daughter's head, she felt anxiety swelling in her chest. That night, even after getting into bed, Jessica continued thinking about Emily's changes. Her daughter was certainly more mature than before. However, it didn't feel like natural growth, but rather the result of carrying some heavy burden. The next morning, after sending Emily off to school, Jessica tried calling the mother of one of her daughter's friends. How has Emily been lately? Has anything changed at school? I don't think anything special has changed. She might be quieter than before, but she's still doing her studies properly and playing normally with friends, so I think she's fine. After hanging up, Jessica felt relieved. If there were no particular problems at school, it was probably the beginning of adolescence. Age 10 was a time of great physical and mental changes. Her daughter might be feeling confused in her own way as she went through the process of becoming an adult. I'll watch over Emily at her own pace. Jessica decided she would trust her daughter, not interfere more than necessary, but always try to be supportive. However, in a corner of her heart, a small anxiety never disappeared. Her daughter's words, "I'm just hygiene conscious." And her expression at that time wouldn't leave her head. She couldn't shake the impression that she was hiding something. Still, their mother-daughter daily life continued peacefully. Emily went to school every day, always took a bath after coming home, did her homework, and enjoyed dinner as a family. On weekends, they would go shopping together or see movies. On the surface, their happy mother-daughter life continued unchanged. On the last Saturday of November, Dayton was covered in its first snow. Jessica decided to tackle her monthly deep cleaning. Emily had gone to the library early in the morning with her friend Sarah and was planning to have lunch at Sarah's house afterward. With rare alone time, Jessica decided to thoroughly clean places she usually couldn't reach. "Today, I'll thoroughly clean the bathroom." Jessica headed to the upstairs bathroom with cleaning supplies. Since Emily had started taking long baths every day recently, the bathroom's usage frequency had increased dramatically. Soap residue marks on the walls and floor had become more noticeable, and she had been concerned about the dirt. She started with the sink. She wiped the mirror, polished the faucet, and carefully washed the basin. Next, she cleaned the toilet and mopped the floor. Finally, she tackled the bathtub and shower area. More soap, scum, and mineral deposits had accumulated on the bathtub walls than expected. Jessica used special cleaner to carefully remove each stain. She also removed the shower head and cleaned the inside. Emily really does take a bath thoroughly every day. Muttering to herself, Jessica continued working. Her daughter had certainly become hygiene conscious, but for this much dirt to accumulate meant she was using a considerable amount of soap and shampoo. The last thing remaining was cleaning the drain. Jessica removed the drain cover and peered inside, and she gasped. An abnormally large amount of soap scum had accumulated in the drain. What should normally be removable with monthly cleaning looked like it hadn't been cleaned for months. White chunks of soap scum were stuck all over the drain walls. Even more surprising was the foam residue that came out from underneath. There was an amount of foam that would be inconceivable from normal bathing clogged deep into the drainage pipes. What? What is this? Jessica stopped her hands and stared at the drain. Emily certainly took a bath every day, but this amount of soap scum accumulation couldn't be explained by ordinary bathing. It was like she was washing her body over and over again every day. While continuing to clean the drain, various questions swirled in Jessica's mind. Was Emily really just hygiene conscious? What exactly was she doing during those nearly hour-long baths every day? As she removed chunks of soap scum, she noticed something even stranger. There wasn't just one type of soap. Jessica usually decided on soap for the family to use together. However, the soap scum coming out of the drain clearly had different ingredients mixed in. There appeared to be soaps with stronger cleansing power, and possibly even components like kitchen detergent. What exactly is Emily using to wash her body? Anxiety swelled in her chest. Why would a 10-year-old child need to wash her body with such strong detergent? Was she desperately trying to wash something off? Even more foam residue came out from deep in the drainage pipe. Jessica used special tools to continue cleaning as far back as possible. The amount of dirt coming out far exceeded her imagination. It was like traces of Emily scrubbing her body every day. While continuing the work, Jessica thought back to her daughter's recent changes. The habit of taking a bath immediately after coming home, becoming less talkative than before, no longer talking in detail about school events, and the occasional unnatural smile she would show. Could it be a terrible thought crossed her mind? Was Emily hiding something? Was something unpleasant happening? And was she trying to wash it away? Bullying or something even more serious? When the drain cleaning was finished, Jessica put her hands on the sink and took a deep breath. Her face reflected in the mirror was pale. Her maternal instincts were sounding fierce alarms. What is happening to Emily? Despite being alone in the room, Jessica muttered aloud. Her daughter's words, "I'm just hygiene conscious," now sounded completely different. Had that been a lie? Had there been some reason she needed to hide something? While putting away the cleaning supplies, Jessica thought about future actions. Even if she asked Emily directly, given her behavior so far, she probably wouldn't tell the truth. Her daughter might be thinking she didn't want to worry her mother for some reason. Maybe something happened at school. The first thing she considered was bullying at school. Perhaps someone had thrown something on her or dirted her and she was desperately trying to wash it off. However, Emily's friendship seemed good, and there were no reports of particular problems from teachers. Next, she considered health problems. Perhaps she had some kind of skin condition that required frequent body washing. However, Emily's skin looked healthy with no particular abnormalities. And as the most frightening possibility, the thought arose that there might have been inappropriate contact from someone. If so, Emily might be desperately trying to wash away those traces out of shame or fear. No, that can't be. Jessica shook her head. Emily's range of activity was limited. It was mostly just going back and forth between school and home with no extracurricular activities. Opportunities for contact with strangers were virtually non-existent. However, the massive amount of soap scum that came out of the drain was clearly abnormal. It was an amount that couldn't be explained by ordinary hygiene consciousness. Emily was definitely hiding something, and that something was probably a very serious problem for a 10-year-old child. Jessica looked at the clock. It was past in the afternoon. Emily was scheduled to return from Sarah's house around midnight. She had to decide what to do by then. I'll observe her behavior. Jessica made up her mind. Starting next week, she would check on Emily's behavior after school. Since she usually worked from home, she actually didn't know in detail what route her daughter took home. Perhaps something was happening along the way. As she left the bathroom, Jessica felt anxiety swirling in her chest. She had to protect her daughter. She had to find out what was happening and help Emily. Her maternal instincts were strongly driving her forward. That evening, when Emily came home, she went upstairs immediately. As usual, Jessica watched her daughter's retreating figure while continuing to think about the day's discovery. The sound of the shower began to echo. Jessica listened carefully. The water sound would stop, then start again. That pattern repeated many times. It sounded like she was intensively washing one part of her body repeatedly. On Monday afternoon, Jessica would normally be working from home at this time, but on this day, she closed her laptop and picked up her car keys. She planned to leave the house 30 minutes before Emily's dismissal time and wait near the school. I'm just checking my daughter's route home, Jessica told herself as she drove. However, deep in her heart, anxiety swirled that she might discover something terrible. Willowbrook Elementary School, where Emily attended, was about a 15-minute walk from home. Jessica parked a little distance from the school and waited for her daughter to come out. At PM, the dismissal bell rang and children came out of the school gate. She could see Emily's small figure wearing a pink backpack, walking with several friends. Jessica breathed a sigh of relief. Her daughter was walking home normally with friends. Nothing seemed problematic. However, after partying with her friends, Emily's behavior changed. Instead of going straight home as usual, her daughter began walking in the opposite direction. Jessica hurriedly started the car and began following from a distance. Emily walked through the residential area toward a small park. It was a place the family sometimes walked together, but she didn't understand why her daughter would go there alone. At the park entrance, Jessica stopped the car. While observing Emily's behavior from afar, her daughter stopped near a bench in the park, and she showed signs of waiting for someone. A few minutes later, a man's figure appeared. At that moment, Jessica's blood ran cold. That man was her ex-husband, Michael. Why is Michael here? It wasn't a scheduled visitation day. The monthly official visit was scheduled for next week. Why was her ex-husband secretly meeting with Emily? Jessica got out of the car and observed the two while hiding in the shade of trees. Due to the distance, she couldn't hear the conversation, but from Emily's body movements, she could tell her daughter was clearly tense. Michael approached Emily and suddenly hugged her. That embrace clearly exceeded the range of paternal affection. It was inappropriately close contact that lasted too long. And the next sight she saw made Jessica's whole body shake. Michael licked Emily's cheek. He wet Emily's face with saliva and ran his tongue down to her neck. Emily stiffened her body and was clearly showing signs of discomfort. You are my child. Don't forget Daddy. Fragments of Michael's voice could be heard carried on the wind. He persistently pressed himself on Emily while crying, treating her daughter's body like his own possession. Jessica's body shook with fear and anger. This was what her daughter had been desperately trying to wash away every day. Michael's abnormal behavior that abused his position as a father. Emily was trying to erase the traces of this humiliating and unpleasant contact every day. Unforgivable. Jessica felt the urge to run out immediately and save Emily. But first, she prioritized her daughter's safety. She had to avoid stimulating Michael and causing harm to Emily. After about 10 minutes, Michael released Emily. Her daughter walked quickly out of the park and began walking toward home. Jessica hurried back to the car and went home ahead of her. Emily came home 20 minutes later than usual. Her daughter went upstairs as usual with barely a greeting and headed to the bathroom. When the sound of the shower began, Jessica's heart felt like it would break. An hour later, Emily came down to the living room. She was wearing her usual forced smile. Emily. Jessica called her daughter's name. She could feel her own voice shaking. What? Mom, you were at the park today, weren't you? Emily's face turned pale. Her forced smile crumbled instantly and changed to an expression of fear. Mom, that's Emily. I saw everything. Jessica sat in front of her daughter and gently took her hand. Emily's hand was trembling slightly. I didn't want to worry, Mom. Tears overflowed from Emily's eyes like a dam bursting. The emotions she had been suppressing until now came flooding out. Daddy waits for me every day after school. He says, "You are my child and I'll take you back from Mom." Emily's voice shook and her words became fragmented. Since when? Since 2 months ago. At first, he was just talking normally, but gradually he became strange. Every day, he hugs me and licks my face. It's disgusting, Mom. Jessica hugged Emily. Her daughter's small body continued to tremble. Why didn't you tell me? Daddy threatens that if you tell Mom, I'll take you away. I didn't want to be separated from Mom. While listening to Emily's confession, Jessica felt overwhelmed by her own helplessness. Her daughter had been suffering this much, yet she hadn't been able to notice. So every day in the bath, Daddy's smell and saliva, I wanted to wash it all away. But no matter how much I washed, the disgusting feeling wouldn't go away. Emily continued crying in her mother's chest. Jessica couldn't suppress her tears either. Emily, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't notice. Mom isn't bad. I was the one hiding it. Mother and daughter continued crying while holding each other. It's okay now. Jessica wiped her tears while looking at her daughter's face. Mom will definitely protect you. I'll never let Daddy approach Emily again. Really? Really? Let's go to the police tomorrow and we'll take legal steps to prevent Daddy from approaching Emily. That night, Jessica called the police station. She explained in detail about Michael's stalking behavior and inappropriate contact with her daughter. The next day, she formally filed a complaint and began the application process for a restraining order, recorded as the Emily Reed case. This matter was processed swiftly. Michael's behavior clearly violated stalking regulations, and furthermore, as inappropriate contact with a minor, he would face more serious charges. A few days later, Michael was arrested at his home. He denied the charges, but Emily's testimony and the footage Jessica had taken at the park became decisive evidence. You're safe now, Emily. The night she received the arrest report, Jessica said while hugging her daughter, he really won't come anymore. He absolutely won't come anymore. The law will protect Emily. From that night, Emily's bath time gradually became shorter. Her daughter's smile also gradually regained its naturalness. The following year, Michael Reed was sentenced at the Ohio District Court. He was found guilty of stalking violations and inappropriate contact with a minor, receiving a sentence of 2 years imprisonment with 5 years probation, and a 5-year restraining order was finalized. Additionally, he was required to receive psychiatric treatment. Now it's really over. On the day of the verdict, leaving the courthouse, Jessica said while holding Emily's hand as they walked side by side, Emily had grown tremendously during this past year. Thanks to the counseling she began right after the incident, Her daughter's heart was definitely on the path to recovery. "Mom, I think only you are my real family." In the car on the way home, Emily suddenly spoke these words, making Jessica's chest feel warm. Why do you think that real family isn't about being connected by blood, right? People who care for each other and protect each other are family, right? Emily's words expressed the deep truth she had learned during this past year. Michael, her biological father, had caused his daughter's suffering and hurt her. On the other hand, even without blood connection, Jessica had loved her daughter unconditionally and protected her completely. Mrs. Johnson, the school counselor, had said the same thing. Family is about relationships where people respect, love, and support each other. Blood relationships don't matter. Emily's fear of bathing also gradually faded. At first, she was even afraid to take showers, but by having Jessica stay in the bathroom with her, she gained a sense of security. And now she could enjoy baths like a normal child for appropriate amounts of time. "Mom, let's go see a movie this weekend, too." Emily's voice had regained the carefree brightness it once had. Their weekend movie viewing continued to be precious time for the two of them after the incident. However, now it wasn't just time for enjoyment, but had become special time for confirming their mutual bond. "Of course, what would you like to see this time?" "I'd like a movie about friendship. Real friends are people who help you no matter what. Right? Like you and me, Mom." Jessica was moved by Emily's growth. Through her difficult experience, her daughter had come to deeply understand the essence of human relationships. Meanwhile, Michael's aftermath was tragic. Due to the arrest coverage, he was fired from his company. He completely lost social credibility and was abandoned by relatives. He fell into alcoholism and was forced to live in a treatment facility. His abnormal obsession with his daughter had ultimately destroyed his own life. "Mom, do you feel sorry for Daddy?" One night while reading in bed, Emily suddenly asked, "Well, he might have been sick, but I can never forgive him for hurting Emily. However, it might indeed be pitiful that he destroyed his own life. I think Mom is stronger than Daddy because Mom protected me." When she heard those words, Jessica felt pride as a mother once again. Even with blood connections, there are parents who hurt their children. However, relationships bound by true love can overcome any difficulty. On a spring evening, mother and daughter were planting flowers in the garden. While carefully burying tulip and hyacinth bulbs in the soil, Emily said, "Will these flowers become a family like us too?" "Yes, they'll support each other and bloom beautifully, Mom. We can stay together forever, right?" "Of course, Emily. We're the best family." Their shadows illuminated by the setting sun stretched long as if snuggling together. This mother and daughter, bound by true love that transcended blood connections, would continue to support each other and walk through a happy life together. True family love lies in loving and protecting each other unconditionally. Jessica and Emily had learned and practiced this precious truth through their own experience.